The cold doesn't negotiate. It doesn't care how expensive your jacket is or how many gadgets you clip to your pack. When the temperature crashes, the cold hunts slow, silent, merciless. The mountain men of the early American frontier understood that better than anyone alive today. And if you're rolling with the Prepper's Survival Blueprint family, hit that subscribe button now, because this is the kind of survival science your future self will thank you for. Let's get into the real knowledge. No fluff, no filler. Mountain men didn't treat winter like a season. They treated it like an enemy that studied them. Every mistake meant lost heat, and lost heat meant lost life. They knew cold had rules, cold had methods. And if they didn't respond with precision, the mountains kept their bones. Modern people assume insulation will save them. Those men knew it was strategy, not equipment, that kept a person breathing through a night at 40 below. One of the deadliest enemies wasn't the wind or the snow. It was the frozen earth. Conduction was its weapon. The ground pulled warmth out of a man faster than any blizzard. That's why the first act of every camp was creating a thick bed of insulation pine boughs, grass, leaves, anything that built a barrier. A buffalo robe wasn't there for comfort. It was a life-saving buffer between flesh and frost. They understood something most beginners don't. You can freeze from below while feeling warm on top. Many did. Convection was the second assassin. The wind didn't just make the cold feel worse. It accelerated heat loss by force. Mountain men didn't know the term wind chill, but they lived its consequences. They built a clothing system designed to trap still air and fight moving air. Buckskin overlayers, wool underneath, constant adjustments based on effort. They picked campsites not by beauty, but by airflow hollows, tree breaks, rock faces, places where the wind lost its teeth. They knew still air meant survival. Radiation was the silent drain most modern hikers forget. The open night sky pulls heat from the human body like a vacuum. Mountain men covered their heads, hands, and necks religiously. Even a small uncovered patch was an open doorway for warmth to escape. They wrapped buffalo robes over their whole bodies, even their faces, because the cold doesn't care if you can breathe easily. It cares if it can steal your heat. They'd rather wake with frost on their beard than wake up dead. Here's the killer most modern preppers underestimate. Evaporation. Sweat. The enemy we make ourselves. Sweat cools the body through evaporation, but in freezing weather, that cooling becomes catastrophic. Mountain men managed moisture like surgeons. They removed layers the moment they felt heat building. They put them back on the second they stopped moving. Cotton was rejected completely because cotton holds moisture like a curse. Wool could absorb moisture without losing insulation, and buckskin let the body breathe. They created a dynamic system, always adjusting, always balancing. They didn't rely on clothing. They interacted with it. Mountain men didn't wear outfits. They wore functional ecosystems. Wool was their moisture buffer. Buckskin was their windshield. The wool capote was their fortress, a long, heavy coat that insulated head to leg. The entire system flexed and breathed with activity. They didn't freeze because they built clothing that adapted to the cold, not clothing that tried to ignore it. That's the part we forget today. We dress once. They dressed constantly. If cold was the predator, fire was the counterattack. Flint, steel, and char cloth were their holy trinity. They didn't depend on lighters or matches, because those fail when conditions go bad. Char cloth caught the smallest spark and smoldered long enough to ignite tinder. They understood wood like a language. What burns hot? What burns long? What burns wet? Reflector fires, star fires, Dakota fire holes, these weren't tricks. They were engineered responses to specific cold weather conditions. Fire wasn't warmth. It was survival math. Clothing and fire weren't enough. The real secret weapon was inside their bodies. The human furnace needs fuel, and cold demands calories massive amounts. Mountain men burned 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day. Fat was essential. Lean meat alone could kill them through a condition now known as rabbit starvation. They hunted animals heavy with fat. They rendered tallow. They made pemmican, one of the highest density survival foods ever created. They understood that internal heat is as important as external insulation. If the furnace goes cold, nothing outside can save you. This might be the biggest difference of all. Mountain men didn't fear the cold, but they respected it. They didn't try to conquer nature, they worked with it. They paid attention. They adapted constantly. They understood that cold doesn't care what year it is. It will kill you the same way it killed men in 1830. Modern survivors often trust gear more than knowledge. Mountain men trusted only what they understood deeply and practiced daily. Because in the end, survival isn't about being strong. It's about being smart in a world that punishes ignorance instantly. Cold is still the same predator it always was. But now that you know how those men survived it, and how we can reclaim that forgotten mastery, we're already steps ahead of most people walking into winter clueless. If you found this guide valuable, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and make sure you subscribe to Prepper's Survival Blueprint for more skills that keep you alive when the world gets unforgiving.